Oh boy, I'm gonna be wearing a lot of Montreal jerseys, aren't I? You Habs fans are excited about this time, aren't you? Detroit fans less so. But hey, Detroit was the best team in the regular season. They won the President's Trophy. There was no President's Trophy back then. Just throwing that out there. Every time I see it, it's in my head of we have this mentality that the President's Trophy is a jinx. This is a 6-team league. The first place team didn't win the cup that year. 38, 20, and 12 was their record. Montreal 35, 23, and 12. Yeah, I can do a video on percentages before and after the trophy came in. I can and do original 6 and I'll stop. Montreal's 35, 23, and 12. Boston's 34, 24, and 12. So those are your 3 teams above 500, and they all look pretty good. Beyond that, the Rangers squeak into the playoffs 26, 30, and 14. The Leafs are rebuilding. So with guys like Bobby Baugh and young guys coming in, there's a rebuild going on. Toronto will be back. They're 21, 34, and 15. Chicago sucks. The Chicago Blackhawks 16, 39, and 15. And it's not getting better. It is not getting better. But because the union's formed, Chicago gets better. Yeah, right. CBS showed a New York Rangers game versus the Blackhawks at Madison Square Garden on January 5th of 1957. I would think if you want to maximize your return and get more people to watch it, you might want the Rangers in Detroit. But hey, that's just me. Or Boston and Detroit. But again, that's just me. In February, Terrible Ted Lindsay, helped form the NHLPA. It officially forms on February 11th, and he's the president. So what do the Wings do? After the season's over, they traded him and Glenn Hall to the Chicago Blackhawks. To which I'm sure Hall said, "What did I do?" And then what Glenn Hall says about it is that Terrible Ted being traded to Chicago meant that he was able to share with Chicago, here's how you win games. Here's how you get better. Terrible Ted Lindsay finished just behind Gordie Howe for the Art Ross that year. And again, if we were talking about now and this kind of thing happened where owners got mad at a guy and just traded him out for not enough back and made another team better, like Chicago, there'd be hell to pay. Especially in a 6-team league where they're all in the same division. So there's no worry about trading to a division rival. They're all in the same division. So basically what Detroit says is, we are so mad at Ted Lindsay. We're so livid that he dared to form a union to question our omnipotence that we're going to send him to the worst team in the league, make them better, and in essence make ourselves worse just to get rid of them. It is all around a disastrous decision by the Detroit Red Wings, a team that up until this point looks like they're still poised to win more Stanley Cups. But of course, Red Wing fans are like, we didn't though. And yeah, that's a big part of the reason why I look at this, and to me it seems like that hastened their demise. And we'll get into that in the next few days about which teams are coming up, which teams get better. But Montreal loves this whole thing. Because now Maurice Richard is not the most controversial figure to ownership and to managements. In fact, it's now Terrible Ted, who shipped off to Chicago. But let's talk about the season before he shipped off to Chicago. The Hart goes to our Gordie Howe of Detroit, although there was some debate about whether Ted Lindsay probably should have had it. The Art Ross goes to Gordie Howe as well. Doug Harvey of the Montreal Canadiens is again your Norris Trophy winner as best defenseman. The Calder Trophy goes to Larry Regan of the Boston Bruins. The Vezina goes to Jacques Plante of the Montreal Canadiens. The Lady Byng goes to Andy Hebington of the New York Rangers. Worthy of note here, Howie Meeker, who I discussed last week, is the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs at this point. Calls up his friend Ted Kennedy and says, "We suck. Can you come out of retirement and come play for us?" And after a year and a half of not playing hockey, Ted Kennedy comes out of retirement, scores 6 goals and 16 assists for 22 points in 30 games. That's a warrior. They still missed the playoffs. It's not Howie Meeker's fault that the team's fallen apart, but he doesn't last very long as coach. Meeker will be back as a great analyst, though. Now, we get into the playoffs. Boston plays the aforementioned Detroit Red Wings. Boston goes in and beats them 3-1. Detroit wins Game 2 7-2. Games 3 and 4 in Boston. Boston wins 4-3 and 2-0. And then Boston wins Game 5 in Detroit 4-3 to win the series in 5. Montreal is equally impatient to get rid of the New York Rangers. They win game 1 4-1. They lose game 2 in New York 4-3 in overtime. Now, I don't know this for sure, but since the Rangers got the first 2 games and Montreal gets the next 3, I'm going to go ahead and bet that the circus is why the lower seed got the first 2 games at home. And the circus caused a scheduling conflict. Because it's the only series I've seen this in, and of course it features the Rangers. Montreal wins game 3 at home 8-3. They win game 4 3-1. Game 5, a very game New York Rangers team forces overtime, but they lose it 4-3. So the Rangers, nice run, doesn't matter. Now Montreal gets to play Boston in the final. What do I say every single time Montreal plays Boston in this series? It's a bad matchup for Boston. Let's get into it. Montreal wins 5-1. They win 1-0. They win game 3 in Boston 4-2 to go up 3 games to nothing. Boston wins game 4 at home 2-0. I assume because Montreal decided we'd rather win the Stanley Cup at home, so we're not going to try our hardest in game 4. Game 5, they beat the hell out of the Boston Bruins, winning the game 5-1, and they win it in 4 games to 1. So Detroit's imploding. Boston doesn't have what you need to beat the Montreal Canadiens. Toronto's rebuilding. Chicago's a tire fire. And the New York Rangers are witnessing a circus. There you go. The 1956-57 season. And it is the second straight Stanley Cup for these guys. Montreal. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And if you're a Montreal fan, this week's videos are good for you. And that'll continue into, well, basically the whole history of the league until 1993. But hey, from now until then, that's it from me. Thank you guys again for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.